Hi there. It's June the 14th and we're continuing our progress through the book of First Kings, and we are in the balance of chapter 12 and coming into chapter 13. We saw that because of his refusal to go gently with the people, Rehoboam has had the kingdom taken away from him, and Jeroboam, the pretender, has taken the 10 tribes of Israel with him. Rehoboam actually wants to win back the kingdom, and so he gets together an army to fight to win back Israel from Jeroboam. But actually, a prophet called Shemaiah comes to Rehoboam and says, "There's no point doing this because God has decided this is the way it's going to be." So actually, Judah retreats and is no longer pursuing Israel. And now these two kingdoms are divided, and as I've just mentioned, the southern kingdom, the one that Rehoboam leads, is called Judah, and the northern kingdom that Jeroboam leads is going to be called Israel. We now learn about Jeroboam that he establishes his kingdom, he builds his capital at Shechem, but he's concerned that people would now go back to Jerusalem to worship, because Israel worships only at the temple, and that this will draw people back to the kingdom of Rehoboam, and therefore his kingdom will fall. And therefore he does something which is very political, purely political. He builds idols at Dan and Bethel, and he gets people to worship there. And he says to them, interestingly enough, the words that we used back in Exodus when Aaron built the golden calf: "Here are the gods who delivered you from Israel, from Egypt, Israel," and calls the people to worship there. The other thing he does is he makes priests of non-Levites. So he chooses anybody. It says anyone who wanted to be could be a priest. And so this is the first example of a political commandeering of the worship of God for the interests of a ruler. And it's very sobering and very salutary seeing what happens. Then in chapter 13 we see a prophet arises, and this is a prophet from Judah. Now what's interesting here is that this is the first of the whole line of prophets which is going to come and to prophesy against the split, or particularly against these altars in Israel. And this prophet, whose name we're not told, he comes and he prophesies against the altar in Bethel, the one which Jeroboam has set up. And of course Jeroboam has also instituted new festivals for people, and he's making the same things happen, but making them happen at Bethel instead of down in Jerusalem. And the prophet prophesies against the altar and says that there will arise one who is called Josiah, that meaning the Lord will save, and he will actually destroy this altar. Not only that, he will destroy the priests, and there will be priest bones burned on the altar. And Jeroboam stretches out his hand to grab the prophet and to stop him prophesying, but Jeroboam's hand dries up in the process, and he asks the prophet to pray to the Lord to heal his hand, which he does. But then the prophet goes on his way, but then there's this very strange occurrence of a prophet who is at Bethel, who is in the northern kingdom, goes after the man of God who's prophesied this against the altar at Bethel, and he tells him that the Lord has spoken to him. He lies to him and says the Lord has spoken to him to invite this Judean prophet back to his home and to eat and drink with him. And the prophet falls for this and comes back to his home, but in the process of the meal, in the progress of the meal, the Israelite prophet suddenly is taken by the power of the Lord and speaks out and says, because of this you're never going to get home, you're not going to see your family again, you're not going to be buried in the tomb of your fathers. And as the prophet leaves to go back to Judah, he's attacked by a lion. But then there's this very poignant story of the Israelite prophet who has misled him being filled with remorse and going and finding his corpse on the roadway, with the lion not having eaten it and the donkey beside him, and he takes up the corpse and buries it in his own grave and tells his sons to bury him there, and says to his sons, certainly the words of this prophet will come to pass, and the altars of Beth and the Dan will be destroyed. It's a very sad commencement to the decline of both Israel and Judah, of their decline into a place where they are overtaken and overwhelmed, and actually where one day they will be taken away into captivity. Again, it's a reminder to us as well of the importance of keeping God in first place and not allowing anything to take his place. So many in power in the world, in politics, see it as their call or their right to commandeer the worship of God. But of course, God comes first, and no politics, no politician can ever divert people from God's own purpose. And we need to always beware of letting anything take God's place, or to usurp his place by taking it for its political use. Have a very good June the 14th.